Hello, welcome to the third video, final video, describing the latest email catalogue from Boundary Books, what we call e-alerts. This is number 100 in the series of e-alerts that we've produced in the last few years. All the details are on our website, www.boundarybooks.com. So to press on, for those who've seen the other two videos, we're part way through. The next book on the list is the Cricketer's Register for 1833. This is in a new binding, but inside is the original text from 1833. This was issued as a supplement to one of the sporting magazines of the time, but it is a separate item. It's numbered from page 1, and it really is a surprisingly detailed account of the season of 1833. It's a shame we don't have it for any other years. Full scores, a lot of detail about what went on in the matches. Here we've got Norfolk against Marylebone. So there's club matches, and there are what we would call first class matches as well, gentlemen players, Felix, Min, and a lot of extra information. So quite a surprising item to find for 1833. The next book on the list, Pamphlets by HPT. This is a series of 6 pamphlets that were produced in the 1920s by HPT. His real name was P.F. Thomas, and this is some 1920s joke. He was known as Hippo Pot Thomas, and so he always wrote under that pseudonym. But what he did was he undertook very detailed research into the early history of cricket, pre-Hambledon cricket, so mid 18th century and before, the very start of the game. It's quite an erudite historical set of studies. This is all 6 volumes collected together, bound together with a special title page, a special index at the back for everything. And this copy was once in the Trent Bridge Library. I don't know how it found its way out, but I'm sure they've still got one. It had been presented by A.W. Shelton, who was a great supporter of Nottinghamshire cricket. So nice to get all 6 volumes together. Then we've got a lovely little item from the 1870s. It's an instructional book, Cricket as it Should Be Played. I'll just hold it there so you can get a good look. Such an attractive cover, by Captain Crawley, who I think was G.F. Pardon. But the book went through many editions, and the bibliography is a little bit obscure of them, but I think this is the first edition, and it's instructional, nice little woodcuts of the game, and the main thing is it's in such beautiful condition. Another small book, again by this time a more famous name in cricket writing, Pycroft, the Reverend James Pycroft. Wrote a number of key early cricket history works. This one's called The Cricket Tutor, and this is instructional, this sort of thing. But a particularly nice copy, we mentioned in one of the other videos the cricket historian Charlie Wallace, and this is another book given to Wallace by A.D. Taylor, a famous cricket collector and historian. There it is, inscription again to Wallace from Taylor, and a very nice copy. It's when was it produced? 1860s, I think. 1862, so it's quite an early book. And talking of early books, next item is cricket books, The 100 Best, Old and New, with Notes and Values, by Charlie Britton. This was produced in 1929. Charlie Britton was a Birmingham-based collector, interesting man. He's one of the great world authorities on Nelson, Admiral Nelson, but he was also a great authority on cricket and cricket bibliography and collecting. All these people, we talked earlier about the Ashley Cooper and the Neville Western bibliographies. These were all in the days before we had Padwick. All cricket book collectors these days rely on the master bibliography by Padwick, produced in the 1970s. But it's easy to forget that before then, people had to do their own bibliography. There was no record. And Britton was one of the forerunners in this. He chose his 100 favourite cricket books, most of them old and rare. And not everyone would agree with his choice, but it makes entertaining reading. And is itself not easy to find these days. The next one on the list, I think, is this book. G.D. Martineau, Gerald Martineau, wrote cricket poetry, and he wrote essays on early cricket history. He was quite a student of cricket, and many of his books are quite easy to come by. But this is a much scarcer one. It's called Teams of Tomorrow. Beautiful cover, lovely illustration on it. And this was produced in a limited edition. That's the title page. It's really quite attractive. It's been done on a private press where a lot of attention to detail in the production. The Vine Press from Staining in Sussex. And it was produced in 300 copies, but the first 30 were on handmade paper, and this is number 5. So it's one of the first 30. It's beautiful, thick, stiff paper, handmade, has a lovely feel to it, and there's a nice long inscription in the front from the publisher. The proprietor of the Vine Press was Victor Newberg, and we've put a lot of details in the e-alert about him. He seems to have been an interesting and strange character, and so this makes a very nice association copy of what is a very rare book anyway. It's the content is poems, mainly cricket poems. The Scorer, Simpkins was a useless creature, he could neither bowl nor bat. It's not exactly Shakespeare, but it's a nice book. Then back to the 19th century, we've got Nottingham cricket matches from 1771 to 1865, with an introductory chapter descriptive of the local history of the game and brief sketches of the principal players. Yeah. One of the rare early histories of Nottinghamshire cricket. There's a number of them. They're quite hard to work your way around the bibliography. This one was printed by A.K. Sutton of Nottingham. It's the title page. It's in pretty good condition, really. They're quite frail. They do deteriorate, but this one still has its cover and its back cover, and full of scores and a little bit of discussion and history. Errata slip, often lost. So yes, a nice book on Nottinghamshire cricket, of which there are many. The next one's a biography, an autobiography, by Frank Iredale, who played for Australia in the sort of Victorian period. 33 years of cricket by Frank Iredale. It's produced in Australia, in Sydney. Oh, there's a better shot of the front cover. There aren't so many primary sources for Victorian era Australian cricketers. So this was produced by himself. A lot of detail, on his life in cricket, written in 1920, when he looked like that. Then back to poetry. We've got a book called A Few Overs by D.L.A. Jeffson. Digby Jeffson was an underarm bowler, played for Surrey, quite a successful cricketer, quite a good batsman as well. He's immortalised in the spy cartoon called The Lobster, for bowling bowling. And he was a bit of a writer, and he wrote poetry, and this is a volume of his cricket poetry produced in 1913 with a foreword by C.B. Fry. It's a lay of lords, minus the bat and the ball, a ballad of a bat, Fenners, the old bowler. Entertaining verse by an intelligent man, but the book itself's in lovely condition, still in its covers, but what makes it special, Jeffson has written on the end paper a complete poem that's not in the book, an extra poem, don't know whether it's published elsewhere, called The Lure of the Game, initialed by Jeffson. So, a unique copy. Then in the catalogue we've got one of the rare books about Lancashire cricket. Lancashire County Cricket, a complete record of the full scores and bowling summaries, etc. By Frederick Reynolds. This was a book that, like a mini Wisden on Lancashire cricket, mainly statistical. The first edition was produced in 1881, and then Reynolds updated it twice more. This is the third version, 1883. All three are hard to get. This is a rebound copy, formerly owned by G.A. Brooking, who was a local northwestern journalist, collector, and cricket writer. Now here's a book, a beautiful book, one of the great desirable books in cricket book collecting. Neville Cardus, The Summer Game. Now most books by Cardus are easily obtainable, but this particular one that he produced in 1929 was also produced in a special limited edition. That's what this is. 120 copies, only 100 were for sale. There's the limitation page, the numbering and Cardus's signature. Book itself is much larger paper than the ordinary edition. Ordinary one's this sort of size. It's on handmade paper, uncut edges. Got that lovely feel to it. The paper is like old rag paper. It's thick and handmade. It's just a gorgeous book and rare, and this one has the dust jacket in pretty good condition. So the book itself is worth having. One with a dust jacket in perfect condition is even scarcer, so that's a real collector's treat. Following that in the list, a bit more ordinary to look at, but still a nice book to own. J.T. Tildesley, Johnny Tildesley, in first class cricket. It's a record of his play by H.E. Holmes, produced in 1912. A nice little book, mainly statistical. But for anyone interested in Lancashire cricket and cricket books, it's a must-have, and you don't often find it in this condition. Look at the spines, the original spine, and the cover's all intact, untouched. Then, saving the best till last, the final item on the e-alert is one of the great rarities of cricket, cricket literature, Lambert's Guide. It's held in this modern clamshell box, but this is the book. William Lambert was one of the great cricketers of the day, until he was eventually banned from Lord's for making bets on the cricket. But he gave his name, I'm sure he didn't write it, but he gave his name to one of the first treatises on the game, The Cricketer's Guide, or a concise treatise on the noble game of cricket as practised by the most eminent players, illustrated by an elegant copperplate engraving, to which are subjoined the laws of the game. Well, this is the 5th edition. The first edition was issued in 1816, which is really very early for a cricket book. It ran through a number of editions. All of them are equally rare, really. This is the 5th edition, which was issued 3 years later in 1819. There's the folding, can you see that? Folding engraving of a cricket scene. Often these are missing or badly stained or torn. This one's in pretty good condition. There's that lovely old 19th century title page with another little engraving, a little vignette engraving on the title page. And then we get into the text, which I'm sure Lambert or his publisher stole from somewhere else. But it's just a beautiful copy of a book from 1819. Very hard to find them. And there it is, well preserved and held in a nice case. And that's the end of eAlert 100. I hope you've stayed with us and enjoyed that little run through. If you can't visit us in the showroom in South Oxfordshire, at least you can see them on YouTube. But we would welcome any visitors here. We've got thousands of books and pictures in the showroom. And do keep looking on the website and the YouTube channel. Thank you.